Let's just talk about Mr. Alex Jones already. We got CNN reporting. I love to use CNN for this stuff. Alex Jones sues House January 6th committee. They say conspiracy theorist and right-wing provocateur Alex Jones says he will not comply with demands the House Select Committee investigating January 6th has made for his testimony and records. According to a new lawsuit he filed on Monday, the lawsuit seeks to block the subpoenas and claims Jones should be protected under the First Amendment. He says that he will also decline to answer questions so as not to incriminate himself. It lands at a moment when the committee has pushed aggressively for witnesses to share what they know about the planning of the January 6 rallies. And they are intentionally, in my opinion, this is what I believe, the January 6 committees are intentionally conflating the rallies with the people storming the Capitol. Because there were a ton of people who were just like regular people. They're waving American flags as Trump was like, we're going to go watch peacefully and blah, blah, blah. And then they went home. And there was a lady, she was like a PSYOPs officer or whatever in the army. She had nothing to do with anything at the Capitol. She went to the rally, gone, discharged. There were a bunch of people who have lost their jobs. Now, apparently, the guy from Bob's Burgers has been fired, one of the guys, because they were like, we think he was there. So this is, look, I think the January 6th committee is completely insane. I think it's all bunk BS. And I think they're trying to strip resources away from people who support Trump so that they can't support him as well moving into 2024.
Well, they had to include the rallies because there's only so many Chewbacca guys, grannies, and feds that they have to go after that were a part of everything else that happened that other day. But it's also interesting to note here that Jones actually volunteered to submit documents and answers in writing for this particular committee, and then the committee refused to do this. They are also requesting his phone records, and as we know, the previous committee members released private phone records. There's also some accusations about phone records being doctored after they garnered them from this January 6th committee. So there's a lot of reasons why a lot of people are saying, I'm not going to be complying with this. And this counter lawsuit is going to be interesting because I bet there's probably going to be discovery on both sides, right?
Maybe. I mean, Steve Bannon tried that. You know, he was filing saying he wanted evidence released on what the government had on this stuff. And then the judge was like, no.
A lot of work for a misdemeanor.
A lot of work for misdemeanors, right?
Because I think a lot of people forget that, like, these charges that they're coming after him for, you know, because I've read a couple of the criminal complaints ran by the FBI agents. And, they're misdemeanor charges, and it's a lot of work to be going after a misdemeanor charge. And just so people know, like, you know, the feds typically don't do a case unless it's, number one, a felony, and then number two, it's going to do substantial time. Because the thing is with the federal court system is you have AUSAs, right, Assistant United States Attorneys. And I don't want to sound like a jerk, but they're kind of divas. They don't take every case that comes to them. They want to be able to. They want to win. There's a reason why federal prosecutors have such a high win rate, and the reason why is because they pick and choose which cases they want to take. If a case isn't good enough, they'll say give it to the state or whatever else. So for them to take misdemeanors and push it to this level is a fairly unorthodox. Obviously, I get it. Like, you know, hey, these guys broke into the Capitol. It's an egregious act.
You've dealt with this stuff.
Yeah.
When you were working at the was it Homeland HSI?
Yeah. Well, so with this type of stuff, no, not in particular. I investigated more like Mexican cartels and everything, but I'm very aware. You know what I mean?
Right. It was in your periphery, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, when you do criminal investigations, regardless of the agency that you work for, whether it's DEA, FBI, whatever it is, we all go through the same federal court system. We use the same prosecutors, the same judges, etc. And you get very familiar with what every agency does as far as like what their investigative authority is. And in a lot of cases, you have a lot of overlap. Like for example, ATF, DEA, FBI, HSI, we all have something called Title 21, which is we can all do drug investigations to certain extents. But, this is where the fighting comes in between the agencies because, hey, well, this is my target. No, it's not. Well, I'm Title 21 designated. Well, I am too, blah, blah, blah. So, so you get to be very familiar with other agencies' authorities because of that very situation where there can be confliction issues.
I have a question. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence that there was a lot of undercover federal agents involved in January 6th, whether provocateurs or organizers. Do you think a lot of those rumors are true, and have you been able to see some of the circumstantial evidence suggesting that?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, because undercover still, like, the public will think like it's undercover, but it's nothing more than an agent in plain clothes. Because, there is no uniform for 1811s or special agents. Like, they wear regular clothing. It's, sometimes they might wear a suit like you see in the movies. Sometimes they wear jeans. Sometimes they wear streetwear. So it wouldn't be improbable for one to be there, just because of the situation, for them to be out there and see what's going on. And bam, you got your eyewitnesses right there. So, if you're like in a real undercover capacity where you're like dealing with criminals and everything else like that, and you're actually in an undercover position, then that's different.
Yeah, there's some crazy videos out there of guys clearly antagonizing, clearly saying, we're going to go to the Capitol, and then those individuals weren't charged. people calling for violence not being charged. So there's a lot of questions surrounding how involved the federal government was and what extent did they help organize and execute a lot of this.
I could see that as potentially problematic, though, from a prosecutorial standpoint, because like if you had a UC agent running around like antagonizing the crowd, like, yeah, let's storm the Capitol, blah, 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 like that would create so many issues for the prosecution to build a strong case, because then you can say, well, were they predisposed? Were they going to do it? Did the government actually take an active role in entrapping them? So like I could see how that could be problematic, from a prosecution standpoint.
Those videos seem a bit over the top for me. There's one guy and he's like wearing like a red hoodie and he's like, everybody, here's what we're gonna do. And I think I agree with you on this one. They're gonna be able to file that, like the defense is gonna be able to get the evidence the prosecution has.
Exactly.
Now it's possible
through discovery.
Right.
And they're gonna get everything. Like the thing is that anytime there's a criminal case built, like the prosecutor has to hand everything over to the defense, which is considered discovery. And there's actually huge issues if they don't turn everything over. Like they can get disbarred, they can get hit with a bunch of issues. So they always turn everything over, even if it's not in their best interest to do so. So if they were to actually do a case and then they found out the agents were doing this stuff undercover and they antagonize the crowd, I doubt any prosecutor that wants to win would take that case. They'd be like, hell no, because AUSAs are very picky on what they take. Yeah.
I think it's entirely possible that these guys were some kind of agent provocateurs or whatever. And we've seen this at many protests, even left-wing protests. You'll see guys show up. It's very obvious that they're to start violence and you don't know who they're with. The problem is it possible? Yes. I would say, how do you prove it anyway, even if it was the case? Because it's not going to be through any conventional means if it's true. So I think the simple answer is it probably just rowdy guys who are like trying to cause trouble.
But those guys weren't charged, and there's clear evidence who they are, what they did, and there's videos of them inciting it. There's videos of them calling for it. But why aren't they charged is the big question, and some people say that would be evidence, but it's not official evidence.
It's not. It's actually really simple. They go to these guys because they know who they are, because they were vocal and loud, and they say, you're going to go to prison unless you tell us the names of all the people who are with you. And then that guy says, you got it, boss. And then all of a sudden, he's no longer in the charging documents. All of a sudden, he's no longer in criminal complaints because he's cooperating and giving everybody up. So that's what I found really interesting, is that people immediately assume.
Happens a lot all the time.
Especially with the feds.
Happens all the time.
They find the one guy. Look. You got all these videos, and the feds are trying to figure out who these guys are. Do you know this person? Do you know this person? Then you get a video of a guy who's standing there in plain view of the camera, yelling over and over again what to do, and they're like, okay, this is going to be an easy guy to find. He's tall. He's this age. He looks like this. We know what he sounds like. He knows where he is. They find him, and then they say, who was with you? Who was talking with you? Give us your phone. And he says, yes. And then they say, okay, we're not going to charge you because you're cooperating.
That's giving the government the benefit of the doubt, which I wouldn't give them here in this particular case. We're going to wait till this data and information comes forward in the court proceedings. But for right now, there is a lot of circumstantial evidence. We'll see how it unfolds, but there's still so much that we don't know. Even the video footage is being kept away from the general public, which is crazy. Which is absolutely not.
Well, it's because it's misdemeanors. It's because you watch a lot of this footage and it's people bumbling around confused half the time. There was violence and there was rioting, but
I definitely see both perspectives. I'm just giving you guys like that perspective where like if you were to actually do that as a UC, it could be extremely problematic to prosecution. And knowing prosecutors and how they operate, federal prosecutors especially, they're extremely selective on what they take. And yes, I mean, a lot of cases are built on the backs of people testifying against each other. That's how the big cases are made. Like if I was an investigator and I got a guy and I see him rallying everybody up, well, I know for a fact this guy has some kind of influence on these guys. I'm going to turn him.
Here's the important thing. Alex Jones is on video, multiple videos, saying, do not do this. Do not be violent. He's telling everyone not to go to the Capitol. They're trying to trick you. He's trying to stop them. Of all the people, of many people who were there antagonizing, Alex Jones was doing the opposite. The reason why I think they're going after him, they're going after people who used to work for the Trump administration. They're going after Jones. Yeah. They want to drain as much of their resources as possible. So here's the thing people need to understand about getting called to testify before this committee. They're going to say, we hereby subpoena you to release all phone records, all this, all that, all otherwise. You know what you have to do then? You've got to hire a lawyer to do it.
Facts.
The lawyer's going to have to go through all your email and figure out what they're entitled to and what they're not based on these demands. And it is going to get expensive. Otherwise, I suppose you can be like, I don't have the money. I can't do it. And then I don't know what they'll do. Maybe take all of your emails, maybe try and come after everything you own. Say, okay, then we'll take everything. Not like you own, but like all of your private data.
They would have to get a search warrant though. Like with a subpoena, like you don't, like subpoenas are a lot of the times it depends on what agency does it under what authority. But
well, it's Congress.
Yeah.
Subpoenaing information.
Well, it's not just that. It's also the federal government pressing charges on a lot of the people surrounding January 6th, including Owen Schroyer, that has an open case against him and an open investigation by the federal government against him because allegedly he was near the Capitol. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's videos of Jones outside saying, hey, you guys are being set up, stop engaging, stop fighting. I mean, that video alone in itself, again, love or hate him, there's video of him saying, don't do this, let's be nonviolent. That should exonerate him from a lot of this.
What are the odds
sure.
of him beating the actual case?
if it's criminal, they're gonna need a search warrant.
It's not criminal though.
It's not.
No.
Owen Schroyer, it is.
Right.
Yeah. So
this is the January 6th. This is Congress issuing a subpoena for information for records. So this means Jones has to file a lawsuit to stop them from getting access to his records or whatever. Because you know what'll happen? They'll get access to his records. There will be nothing in there incriminating, but there will be embarrassing things that will get leaked to the press or
course.
taken out of context. They'll manipulate the evidence like they did with.
But he's got to be
Jim
able
Jordan.
to assert his Fourth Amendment right to some degree. He has obviously a very strong reasonable expectation of privacy.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So, he's got to be. Yeah, I really doubt they'd be able to get access to it.
I can make it simple for everybody: is use end-to-end encryption and use VPNs and tell them to get a warrant.
Yep.
But what if
That's
these are
what
as like an example to say, hey, you know what? Here's an example. If what not to do, let's use Alex Jones. Who knows?
I hope not. I mean, I think he has the ability and the resources to get a lawyer, but man, they should not. Like, he has a serious reasonable expectation of privacy in his emails, phone communication, etc. Like because here's the thing. I've done Title III intercepts. Like, I've done those cases where a Title III intercept is when you listen to a phone real time, right? Or to get someone's emails or whatever. It takes an enormous amount of probable cause to get into that stuff. Now, I'm not sure. You said it's not a criminal case, but regardless, he's still going to have an expectation of privacy. And if the government's going to come in and try to get your information, Fourth Amendment, man, and they're going to need some kind of serious stuff to be able to get in there.
Well, it depends on what kind of judge signs off on it, because if we remember the Edward Snowden, Glenn Greenwald days, we found out that judges blankly, just generally signed everything over, allowing federal agencies to spy on, of course, the American people.
If it's a FISA court,
want
changes.
Let me ask you something.
Yes.
Yeah. You said you did what, Title III interceptions?
Yeah, I have.
So that's literally like you're listening in and you can hear the phone ring and then or how does it work?
Yeah.
Or can you hear them if the phone's not being active?
No, you can't.
Okay.
So here's the thing. Like, and there's different spectrums of this, but Title III is when you're listening to a phone, like for a criminal case, right? Which they
don't know you're eavesdropping.
Yeah, they don't know. But this, when I did it, most of the time when the government does it, it's for drug cases.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it was a drug investigation that I did, and you were listening to it. Now, I will tell you guys, and anyone will tell you this, an affidavit to get probable cause for a Title III intercept, you need more probable cause to listen to someone's phone than to arrest them. Wow. I'll say that again. Yeah. You need more probable cause to listen to their phone to arrest them, because the thing is you need to establish that the phone is used for some kind of criminal activity. To be able to do that, you have to gather evidence to show that phone is used in criminal activity. And a lot of the times it's beyond the threshold of an arrest. Sorry, go ahead.
Have you ever dealt with someone using end-to-end encryption?
Like, could you listen to signal phone calls?
Well, a better question is VoIP, right?
Yeah.
So if someone dials a number and presses go, that's what you're typically hitting, right?
So I never did on end-to-end encryptions. I always did it on phones. But
end-to-end encryption would just be like, I got Signal on my phone.
Yeah,
right?
like WhatsApp or Signal or Telegram.
So that's not going through a phone company. You know what I mean? So you'd have to go to Facebook or whatever and be like, we want access to this direct to this line. You know what I mean?
So I'm not aware at this point. So I can't speak on it in an educated fashion. But I will tell you that when I did them, we did them on phones, and it's not that hard, because a lot of guys, they would just like use regular phones,
like cell phones.
They would use cell phones. Yeah, they would use burner phones, and they would change the phone number often.
But so you got to get access to these phone companies, or is this like?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you would go through the phone companies to do it. But you would have to have like an enormous amount of probable cause to do it. But this is criminal, remember. So like when you're doing like a criminal case, it has different, sets and procedures than like, let's say, a FISA court. You know what I'm saying? That's like more national security related. that's, classified stuff. I didn't deal with that side ever, really. And the reason why is because of the pain in the.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Now, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.